Okay. So we're just going to try moving through two of our stances, the two forward weighted stances that are left, because they have the exact same footwork as the previous one that we just did. But it doesn't have quite that rotation in the waist and spine. So single whip and pung or ward off, um, depending on how you're thinking of your techniques. So again, so I've got some lines in the floor here, and I love using them to really line up my feet. Um, I forgot to mention last week, some people can have wider hips than shoulders, and some people can have wider shoulders than hips. And those kinds of things really do impact how wide your stance should be in this first angle. So you want to learn what that spot is in your body through experimentation. A lot of times you'll hear, in these narrow stance Tai Chis, like, and by narrow stance, I mean at this angle, not at, this angle, which can be really quite strung out. You'll usually find that people recommend 2 inches or so. That's probably about 2 inches on me, and roughly speaking, it's pretty good for my body. But you might find you need narrower or wider depending on what's going on in you, how big you are, the ratios of your shoulders to hips. So um, that's about the angle I look for, about 2 inches. And then one of these guys rotates out, not all the way to 90. 90 is going to ask for too much flexibility. It's maybe I don't know, like 70-ish degrees, 80, I don't know. I don't know my angles really well, so you'll have to bear with me on that one. And then slide this guy just straight forward. And a lot of people will slide this way or they'll slide this way as I say that. Be meticulous. Really look at yourself in the mirror. Really look at the lines if you can create them. You can use little area rugs and stuff to create lines if you don't have anything else, right? So using this, I can say, oh, well, here's a line right here or whatever. So I'll make a footprint, as it were, and use that footprint. And you'll notice with this line right here, I can keep myself really well aligned. So I've got the initial wind up really well done. And then I'm not going to drift off if I just keep everything on this line here. I almost just did. So that kind of a thing can really help you keep yourself aligned. And again, how wide you want to go in the, this one was over here. How wide you want to go in at this angle really depends on what you're trying to accomplish for a day. Sorry, I'm distracted here for a moment. I like to use stance training as a place to push into my flexibility. So I try and go as low as I can go for the day, depending on how my tissues are feeling. And usually by the time you've warmed up, you can actually get a little bit more depth and stuff. Another reason I like to start with the back-weighted stances, by the way. So anyway, but to the point, I get that initial maybe 2-inches here. Draw this guy out to about, I really don't know my angles, but see, I should probably move over just a little here. Whatever it is, maybe 70, 80 degrees. And then straight forward with that guy. And by the way, in order, especially with my short leg, long leg thing, to maintain my symmetry, I also mark a line like from there to there so that I can get symmetry when I switch sides. So that's something worth really paying attention to. And then again, you really want to develop as low as you can comfortably go, keeping your alignment here in your knees to toes ratio. And as I warm up, I can kind of drop more right about there, starting to push into my flexibility. I can feel this guy starting to buckle a little, this guy a little. I've got really, really tight short adductors. So at a spot like this, I'm going to just sit here and practice getting that hip nice and tucked, knees out to where they should be, and then resting into our form, whatever structure it is. So in this case, pung or ward off. Double checking my specs a little. And, you know, right about there is where I train it at when I'm cool. You can see I'm not quite parallel to the earth. I'm not quite flexible enough to quite go there. But it's worth saying, if you can, you may as well go for it. Another thing you'll run into is, whereas in the form, you don't really want your knee going past your toe ever. That's just not a thing. When you're stance training, it's actually just fine. You're going to hear a lot of naysayers about it. A lot of people just, oh, it's so bad for your legs, blah, blah, blah. I have used this stuff to rehab my broken knees. So I don't believe them at all when they say it's bad for your knees. I just think that they don't know what they're talking about. And often it's because of movement quality issues. So anyway, you can actually see, for the record, if you hunt it down, I forget the guy's name, but there's a Tai Chi master who would like take these so far out that his knees in his stances were in fact beyond his toes. And that wasn't actually that uncommon in some of the old Tai Chi, not during the forms necessarily, one exception aside. But when you start looking at stances and stuff, the one exception aside is the very deep version of the stance or the form, which requires just like this tremendous like flexibility down here and strength down there that I simply don't have. That one, you have to have your knees over your toes in order to do it. They just simply have to go there. So anyway, during the form, generally not, but stance training, I find it very helpful. And for those of you who have done Aikido, you know full well you can't roll without doing this. So anybody who's ever told you just don't ever let those knees cross the toes, I don't agree or believe them. I've explored this for many, many years, and I've always just kind of looked at people who said that, listened to them, thought about it, but never found any scientific evidence that they were correct, or experiential evidence either. Okay, so that's the basic stance on the bottom. The pung shape on the top, I'm going to narrow up my stance a little bit for it. Get those hips pointed down, right up here, and then I roll down into this posture. And yeah, you should be able to see that from that angle. Let's just get a few quick shots on it. Get your hips down, knees aligned. Knees aligned by reaching straight into the knee, not by pushing sideways. We talked about this last time. And then pung is just here. I'm actually letting this elbow sag as much as possible, keeping my fingers extended with as little energy as possible, relaxing my shoulders, which I'm, you know, in my pain all the time, I tend to do those things. And then the backhand is just in a push position. So boom. Tai Chi palm, by the way, is a little bit different than the Bakwa, and I forgot to mention it, but it'll be a great moment to just reference, because you got to learn it for all these stances, really. You just kind of want to think about making all of your lines bent ever so slightly in your fingers and in your palm, ever so slightly, just everything bent, nice and graceful, kind of a scoop to the whole shape. Ideally, yeah, right about there. So it's funny looking at my own hand. From externally, it just draws my attention to aspects of the of form that I don't necessarily notice unless I'm looking in a mirror. So anyway, reiterate, it's worth looking in a mirror. Okay, so that's pung. Tai Chi hand is the same through all of these shapes. Hold the ball here, it's that way. Palms outstretched, it's that way. So there's just the slightest bit of a bend and flex between these shapes. And as you're moving in the form, there will be a bend and flex to the whole palm as well, ideally. So don't be rigid about, I'm going to hold this shape. It's more complex than that, especially when you're going to something like the single whip, which we're coming to in a moment. Yeah, and then I do every stance bilaterally. Some people don't, but I definitely do. Creating symmetry is one of the best things you can do for your health. So that's Peng and or ward off. Oh, I should just show it from one more angle. I was doing this one, so I should show it from this angle as well. Get those hips down, knees over the toes, Peng. So you can see how, well, ideally you can see all the angles now anyway. So it's not quite as turned with our waist and spine as the last exercise. And now single whip takes us even a further step farther than that. So the exact same footwork, the exact same stance. Torso just a little less twisted this time, showing the front angle first. Maybe not the best choice, but whatever, not that important. I have all 4 fingers touching the thumb. In the Yang 108 I do that looks like Fu Songwen and Yang Chengfu pictures where he's really clearly forward weighted in these postures. All 4 fingers touch the thumb. It's a little different in the T.Y. Peng system. All 4 fingers touch the thumb, elbow hangs as low down as possible, let that shoulder rest towards the ground. And then, yeah, from there, you kind of got this tight, small circle ball you roll out, and right when your blade of your hand is pointing in the same direction as your knees and toes, and your pinky is pointing straight up in this sky, that's the stance. This guy is pointing out, roughly speaking, over these knees, this knee and toe back here. So it's kind of a wide angle, just a little bit of a wide angle. Give you another angle here. It's worth mentioning as I drive by here, single whip is the most used form in the entire form. I mean, a structure in the entire form. We go through it so many times. And it's arguably the most useless of the techniques that I've learned. I haven't learned a couple of them. But it's really interesting to watch how the Chinese work with that shape, because it shows up in a super ancient manual. So it shows up in all of the Tai Chi, Kung Fu styles. It's over and over again. Slightly different per style. But that single whip, it's super important to them because of the tradition. So about there, yeah, it looks about right. And in regards to that, it's worth saying that sometimes their traditions are holding on to something that we don't necessarily value in the West in terms of our martial arts, but it does, right about there, and it can be more outstretched. The more outstretched my legs are, the more outstretched my arms should be. Just a quick thought, because you'll see some people, just really here, right? And then you'll see some of the forms. And when you've got the shallow legs, that's what works. But when you get the really deep stretched out, you're going to want the stretched out shape. So watch those ratios. It's really a ratio internally. Wow, I was trying to talk about 2 things at once, and that was probably kind of confusing. But anyway, one of the interesting points on this single whip is that it's holding on to a healing element that can be really quickly lost. So your lung meridian starts, there's kind of these 2 little bumps here on either side of one of these tendons that comes off your chest. You'll feel it. You start doing stuff like this, you'll feel this tendon kind of rolling. There's 2 bumps on either side. This one here, the lower one, that's the beginning of your lung meridian. It runs down to your thumb, and that's the exit on the lung meridian. So what you've got going on is a stimulation of the meridian and then a stretching of the meridian. So when you start talking about Tai Chi as a yoga, there's a lot of subtleties like that are going on where it's like, let's work with that lung meridian, open it up. and heal those deeper elements. So anyway, that's a little bit of an aside about the single whip, but it's important to understand that this technique, that its martial applications school to school, is wildly different at times. Yang Zhuang Ming uses it as a stab, a finger stab here, and the T.Y. Pang system that we learned, it was like a strike here to a interception and or strike there. So it can, and then there's some that use it as a grappling move. So it can be really wildly different. I think I said all the specs correctly. I might have blown through the ratio concept just a little bit fast there. Let me just show that one more time. So if I'm doing like a small circle thing, boom, I might have something like this. And if I'm working with a big circle thing, I might be a little bit more outstretched. And you want to just learn to feel it internally. And we will actually do some exercises to teach you how to feel that internally when we get to the partner exercises. Okay, yeah, so that's 2 new stances. Hit me up for clarifications. Oh, yeah, the final thought I wanted to just make about the single whip thought and how it's the most common one. One interesting thing that's worth mentioning is, if you can't even do a posture correctly with the correct ratios in your body, then you can't do the form correctly. So how do you develop that ratio? How do you learn that ratio? Well, at first you just practice relaxing as much as you can while you do these stances. And then when we come to the partner exercises, I'm going to actually show you stance by stance. It'll be my next series, where you should be able to bear weight in each of these stances. And from there, if you get a partner and you just start exploring, you should learn how to be like, if your hand's too far out, you'll feel that pressure as it's coming in as some sort of tension. And as you release and relax, it might fall into a better position, and suddenly there's no tension and you're super solid and powerful. So we will deal with that, how to develop that ratio. But you might be surprised how much just stance training will develop it. So yeah, get on it. I'm going to do one more stance next week, and then we're going to do all the stances in a set that probably will take us about a half an hour. 10 breaths per stance is what we're going to do. My breaths, because I'm not able to hear your breaths. And it'll be the first intro to exercise. And again, coming back to this idea that isometrics are literally one of the best exercises for a broken body, because they don't require all the motion. If I can't even run, and it would trash my body to try. But isometrics, I can hold, even as soon as they allow me to have 50% weight bearing after a big surgery, I can start my stance training. And that has infinite value. Just incredible value. So much so that the last time I had a surgery and they removed this bone chunk again and replaced it with another bone and pulled the rods in and out and screws, and big surgery. As soon as I was done with their physical therapy regime, after like a month or whatever, all I did was Tai Chi. Like, all I did. And the Tai Chi rehabbed me so much better than the physical therapy routines that I used to stay in for, like 6 months or whatever. Threw it away. Just did the Tai Chi versions. Did Tai Chi circlings with the legs, right? Just trying to get this kind of stuff so that my leg could move fluidly. Just working with these balance exercises will come too, so my knee can move fluidly, stuff like that. And that stuff is all great, but man, those isometrics, they're the place to start. If you're super damaged, try the isometrics, and you can press yourself deeper and deeper into a stance, get more and more, strength development, mostly endurance development. Um, and yeah, it's a great place to start if you're damaged. Okay, so yeah, we will continue the stance training again next week. Yeah, I think I said it all. Should probably. All right, have a good day.